and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth in the flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to another episode of the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
I'm your pet crow, Mike.
I'm Colton.
And it's Gill.
And we are back. I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to think of like something witty to say about WANUARY, but I didn't really have anything that witty to say other than my soul may be beaten down and tormented. But
all right, Mike's starting the episode off with crickets that nobody else can hear as Rowan is starting to do his intro. That's great. That's better than any witty thing about
yeah,
WANUARY.
That's right.
Well, you guys said the title wrong. It's WANUARY. I thought we agreed.
The heated debate. The heated...
Jill, are you on fire or are you smoking during the episode?
But let's not call me out during the episode.
That's the only way to get through the dead silence episode.
Is it not? Yeah.
But we are, we're here. We're back. Our last WANUARY. This is the debate that's raged the internet for the month. How to pronounce it. But we are coming to a close. But before we get into any of that, we got to talk about what we've been consuming, what we've been watching, what we've been listening to, what we've been reading, unless it's stupid books, Jill. And we will start with you, Mike.
I have been reading 2 books. I'm still reading the Kathy Acker biography that I was reading last episode, because I'm kind of picking away at it, but also because I'm reading another book. It's an advanced copy of a book that's coming out in April, and it is called Dayspring by Anthony Oliveira, and I've been waiting to read it for like 6 months, and it's already destroying my soul and my life. So it's one of those. So definitely, based on the like 10th of it that I have read so far, look for that in April, because it's going to be really good. And honestly, I did a rewatch of Nightmare on Elm Street the other day.
Nice.
A wine rewatch, which was really fun. It's just like, I was like, oh my god, I can watch this movie like literally 1,000 times and never get sick of it. But to be honest, other than catching up on the finale of Canada's Drag Race, which was the worst season ever, by the way, and the new season of Drag Race, I have been sinking all of my time into finally, after 2 years almost, playing Elden Ring, and I fucking love it. I love it. I started off rough because I picked the wrong build and the wrong class, and then I switched, and I'm so loving it right now. Like, literally all I can think about all day at work is like, okay, how many hours of Elden Ring can I get in when I go home? So, yeah, honestly, like, that has been consuming most of my time. I've been, like, trying to read, trying to watch stuff, but, like, I'm just, like, gaming the fuck out of it. I mean, relatable, right, y'all?
Nodding in agreeance.
Yeah, I mean, I've been gaming a little bit as well. I just beat Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I'm the only person in the world, I think, that hates Breath of the Wild. I don't know if any of you guys are Zelda fans here, Nintendo fans, but that game's like unanimously beloved. So
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
there's a reason. There's a reason.
Listen, I grew up as a traditional Zelda boy. When I was playing that, I was like, this isn't Zelda. This is like a shitty open world game and not Zelda. So I didn't like it very much. This new one, I only got through it because my brother essentially forced me to play it over the holidays. And whenever I was like ready to bounce out, he was like, oh, well, go here and, you can get a little bit more story, or go here and you can get the classic green tunic or whatever. So I made it through it begrudgingly. And I will say, like, after like 20 hours or so, I did get into it. But I mean, that's a long time to get into it. So
yeah,
I'm probably not starting the It Plays podcast anytime soon, where we just talk about video games, because I don't want these bad video game takes out there, really. In addition to Zelda, I had a lot of catching up to do in theaters when I got back. I don't know if it was super noticeable or not after the fact of like me recording home. Was my audio all messed up afterwards, Rowan, or was it fine?
No,
or...
it was fine.
It's fine? Okay. No, that's good at least. But yeah, when I got back in town, I had a bunch of like traditional awards movies to kind of check out in theaters. And the first thing I watched after my pipes froze in my house and my car wouldn't start and all those sorts of things. It was brutal. I went to theaters and saw The Color Purple, which is another musical that they're not marketing as a musical. So I went in, I didn't really know it was a musical, and I'm also unfamiliar with the Spielberg movie from the 80s. So I've never seen it before. Mike, you mentioned before we started recording that you've seen it loads of times. I guess it's worth watching.
It's really, really good. I've also read the book twice. The book is excellent. The Spielberg, while it cut out a lot of things that I don't think it should have, it's phenomenal. It's one of those movies that, like, if you're not a fan of Oprah as her, like, big, guru talk show personality, like, that woman can fucking act. And this is a movie full of actors. So, yeah, it's definitely worth checking out the original.
Yeah, I like this musical version enough that I definitely will check out the original at some point. This one's directed by Blitz Bazawule, who... I don't know from anything, but apparently he directed the Beyonce visual album Black is King.
Nice. Okay.
So I haven't seen that. I'm not a Beyonce fan. It's not really my type of music that I usually listen to. But what I will say is this had like a lot of the musical numbers and whatnot. After kind of like the first two were really well directed. Like they made great use of the cinematic techniques, and I thought everyone who was performing was really good. Specifically Danielle Brooks, who plays this sort of like voluptuous firecracker of a woman who won't take shit from any man, basically stole like every single scene she was in. It's a bit of a shame because at the beginning of award season, basically everybody was saying she was a shoe in the win, like best supporting actress, but now it seems like The Color Purple is just essentially getting shut out from everything. But other than it being like a little long, and like I said, the first couple musical numbers being a little bit of a rough start, and how the movie kind of makes peace with like a really terrible character by the end of it, which I didn't really need, but who knows? It winds up making the movie end on a nicer note. I basically enjoyed everything about it. I thought it was, pretty good watch overall. The next thing I checked out in theaters was Ferrari, which this is Michael Mann's new movie, starring Adam Driver, Penelope Cruz, and Shailene Woodley, which I can't stand. But anyways, I never knew she was in it when I went to see this movie, and I wouldn't avoid it because Shailene Woodley's in it, but it's very much
I would.
The way that you said her name, I think I need to make a meme out of Shailene Woodley.
I remember when she was starring in these like YA movies, and she was just in the press always talking about how she eats mud. And I was just like, who is this girl? Like,
I didn't watch Divergent series because of her. I couldn't do it.
She's bad, and she's bad in this as well. And this is just another one of those biopics that came out in 2023 where it's a real-life figure that basically the movie's just focusing on a very specific period in their life that doesn't give me enough to really know about like what they did or like get to know them intimately. So ultimately, I don't really care that much by the end of it. Like Priscilla, for me, who's someone who wasn't familiar with Priscilla Presley, I kind of felt that way. Maestro was like that. Napoleon was probably the worst offender of this. And Ferrari, like, once again, was kind of similar. It's largely just a movie about Enzo Ferrari's marriage and his adulterous relationship and illegitimate son rather than, like, the racing, which I was kind of a little bit more, interested in. Like, you do get to the racing stuff, like, in the third act, but, it's just not really enough to kind of make up for the rest of, like, the more dull movie I found, like, leading up to that. And then, of course, it just ends all of a sudden and leaves you with, like, a couple of screens full of text to explain, like, probably what should have been the ending of the movie, which is just also all these biopics have been doing. So, yeah, I was kind of underwhelmed, and it wasn't really for me. And once again, I just can't figure out how someone would be married to Penelope Cruz and cheat on her with Shailene fucking Woodley. That was like almost as unbelievable as Shailene Woodley's Italian accent for the whole movie, which, I could do a better Italian accent. I'm not going to, force all of our listeners to hear it, but, also not getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to act in these movies. Rowan, you also saw Ferrari. I think you liked it a little bit more than me.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, what you're forgetting to say is that Shailene Woodley pretty much halfway through the movie just decides to stop doing an Italian accent.
No. She speaks a sentence in American, and then at the end she'll put like a roll an R or do like a Mario impression. That's what she does.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, I don't really give it, like, I'm not a car guy, I'm not a race guy, so I really don't give a shit about like racing or Ferraris or anything like that. But to me, I thought like Penelope Cruz was amazing in this. And then just, yeah, Adam fucking Driver, man. Like, what a star, what a rock star. I'm all for Adam Driver giving me a terrible Italian accent, just getting his pudge on. He's got like the old dad bod stomach going on.
That was definitely prosthetic. No way.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna need to watch this now.
But you know, I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. I was more interested in that like relational aspect, and I think because I didn't care about the racing, like even how it ended, I was like, all right, cool. Like I don't really care anyway. So you know, I think this probably like, I don't know, mid lower tier Michael Mann, but you know, I thought it was fine.
You also had a chance to check out Poor Things, which was what I was going to discuss next. So how about you just kick off Poor Things? What do you think about that? You saw that like last night, right?
Yeah, me and X went and saw it last night. I'm jealous. I thought it.
Me too.
It looked fantastic. It sounds fantastic. The score is like top notch.
The score is so weird.
Yeah,
but anyways,
it's very weird. And I really enjoyed it. You know, I wrote on Letterboxd. I think Exili did too. Like we kind of had our gripes with it. I know she had some issues with it, you know, with kind of the conceit of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of maybe being a little weird and inappropriate in some views. And then me also, like I said, I mean, with most of this stuff, and you know, I thought it was kind of funny because I said it reminded me all the times me, her, and Mike would talk about some horror movie we would review that would be like kind of tagged as like this like feminist masterpiece horror movie, but then it's like written by men, directed by men,
based on a book by a man.
Yeah, based on a book by a man. And that was kind of my issue with it, is even though everything I enjoyed the performances, the look of it, it's still just like there was something disingenuous about it in its like feminism, that it was like, cool, like I get you're trying to be feminist, but it's also just like, well, to be a feminist, you gotta fuck a bunch of guys. That's like our view on
a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
A lot of guys. Yeah.
And I just, you know, it seems like that's always the go-to when it's like a male-dictated feminism piece, is it's just like,
dictated.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, what were your thoughts, Cole? Like I said, it was weird because other than that, I liked everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's like my favorite of his movies. I think I like The Lobster a little better, but...
Oh, that's crazy, because I actually hate The Lobster. That's my least favorite of his movies. But I did like Poor Things. I do agree with you that I think some of the aspects of the movie are like pretty troubling. Like if you actually sit there and kind of time out Emma Stone's like intellectual and sexual maturity in the film, like, does it really line up, or is it like just straight up disgusting? And the movie obviously doesn't really give you enough to really 100% go one way or the other. And I do agree that I think some of it's like feminist ideology and the themes of like sexual liberation that it's exploring doesn't really hit quite as hard as just like a general reading of it being like this zany, surreal glimpse into the human condition and how we all mature and go through life, you know, just something more general, right? Like I think that's probably more accomplished if you just look at it that way. But yeah, the movie's really like really absurd. It's very funny. I would completely get that if in like 20 minutes you just turn this off, because it's literally starts off, it's like, it's black and white, it's a fisheye lens, it's Emma Stone babbling like a baby and pissing herself and whatnot. It is literally like, what am I watching? But after like, you know, a good hour or so, I was really into it, and it just kind of kept growing on me. Like I said, it's very funny, it's visually striking. I think some of it winds up looking bad, that it's like, it's so out there and like surreal and weird that it's like, this looks awful, but it's kind of like, whatever, it's interesting, I haven't seen it before. And I do think the performances, which I don't think you mentioned, by like Willem Dafoe and Emma
Fantastic.
Stone, like obviously they're excellent, but for me, Mark Ruffalo kind of stole the movie, and he's just like this very scummy, problematic lawyer, to say like the least about him, like literally just like this terrible character. And they walk this line between him being like really menacing, but also this huge loser and just like this creep. And it's really fun to kind of watch Mark Ruffalo kind of like juggle all of that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I went with a couple of friends of mine and we all like, left really enjoying it. And our theater was kind of like completely eating it up. But, I completely understand some of the criticisms that are kind of getting lobbied against it. And then the last thing real quick, I guess I'll say, is I saw the Iron Claw, which I thought was excellent. It's absolutely devastating. I don't want to talk about the story of the Von Erichs. If anyone's a wrestling fan, I'm sure they probably know about it. I had no idea what it was about going in, and I read up on the true story after the fact, and I was like, wow, the true story was even more heartbreaking. So I am kind of, there's a lot of discussion about like whether or not this was a truthful adaptation or like some of the story aspects they changed from the real life story. And I'm like, I think they made the right choice, because I think it would have wound up almost being like misery porn to a certain degree. So I am, I'm happy with this adaptation and what I saw. I thought Zac Efron was amazing. The dude bulked up, was in incredible shape for this movie. I was like, damn, just watching this movie is going to give me like an eating disorder or something. It was like this guy was on another level. The only real kind of thing of this movie that was like a little bit of a detractor to me was I thought some of the wrestling stuff was filmed really poorly. Like if you go like and you think about like a Creed movie or like Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler, or obviously you go back to like Raging Bull or something, like all the like kind of combat in the ring is filmed in a very like a visceral way that you can kind of still make sense of it all. This just kind of seemed really like shaky cam, like I don't know, it seemed like a little bit hard to kind of track what was going on. And especially when you have like a tag team or even triples, people in the ring, it's kind of like you want to see like what is happening, to kind of get the drama and kind of feel the beats of the scene. But other than that, like I thought the movie was excellent. It was very emotional. And I wish it was kind of picking up a little bit more steam this award season, because I think it's just going to get shut out. I don't think it'll be nominated for anything. So yeah, I very
feel
much
like
enjoy
everybody won't stop talking about it. That's weird.
Oh really? If you look, It hasn't been nominated for like anything. Like if you look at like the PGAs or the SAG nominations or Golden Globes, like nothing, shut out on all of those. So like maybe it's getting talked about now because it's in theaters, but it's I don't think it's going to pick up any nominations. I would be shocked. And,
that is really sad.
Yeah. So Jill, yeah, you also saw this movie, and this is the last one I was going to talk about. So take it from here.
Thank you. I have to agree with you on everything, but I didn't really find the camera work to be that problematic for me.
Not in the wrestling scenes?
No, I don't know. I don't know why, but I think it kind of added to like the chaos of what was happening. Like it, it was gritty, and it was like grimy, sweaty, gritty, like 80s wrestling, and I think it kind of like went with it, and it was just like all over the place.
Gotcha.
But apart from that, I thought the Iron Claw was fucking amazing. I love Zac Efron's performance. His body looked insane. Like I can't believe that's his real body.
Yeah.
Like insane. Also really like Jeremy Allen White's performance. And the story also really gripped and devastated me. I was crying in the theater. I liked the theme of like, tragedy kind of cursing a family versus, is it really just a string of consequences for their actions, especially their father, who's like pretty toxic. And I've been following wrestling a little bit the last year. I remember Ryan.
Fucking dirtbag.
I was gonna call you Ryan. I was gonna say Rowan has called me a fucking dirtbag on like several occasions this past year. I was watching like WrestleMania. I think we actually, did we move the podcast episode one day because of WrestleMania?
No, we didn't. Did we? I must not have known about that. Oh my god.
I think it was. It was like on my birthday. Was it?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you probably used your birthday as the excuse, not WrestleMania.
I don't know if I'd publicly announce that, but you do you.
No, listen, I've been really liking it, especially women's wrestling. I think, I don't know. I didn't really know much about it besides like watching Glow and loving it, but I really love Rhea Ripley. She's badass, and it's interesting to see this after kind of paying more attention to wrestling. And I know that there's a lot of wrestling families that, are struck by this like tragic curse of people keep, dying, and like all these bad things keep happening to them. And like you said, Colton, they like they really reined the story in and tamed it. It's supposed to be way more tragic. But I think it worked with what they did, like you said. Otherwise, it might be too much. But the story is that get crazy. It starts to get like a little predictable. Like, you know, something bad's gonna happen, and you know, it's just really hard to shake. Amazing. Probably my favorite movie of the year.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, I really loved it. I don't know. I can't stop thinking about it, honestly.
Now tell us about minotaur milking.
Okay, I'm moving on. I'm going to talk about Iron Claw later on when we film The Medium, but anyways. I also watched, last time we were here, I was talking about watching Bones and All, right? And then Rowan said I should watch A Folded Ocean, which is a 14-minute video on Vimeo that you can watch for free.
Which I still haven't watched, by the way.
It's really good. You just got to bite the bullet. I woke up in the morning and for some reason I was like, I'm going to watch that, like first thing. And I was like, okay, that was a decision. It was very like Cronenberg, slimy, grimy, but also heavy themes of like codependency and, you know, toxic romance and all this. And very show, not tell, very subtle, but it's there. Very effective for 14 minutes. I really liked it. I'm telling everyone I know to go watch it. So yeah, take the 14 minutes, Google it. It's very like Kafka-esque also, which I like, you know, just suddenly turning into, you know, a bug or a monster and, you know, crazy.
You also love saying Kafka-esque.
I also love saying Kafka-esque. I'm such a piece of shit. Jesus. Also, I watched It Lives Inside. I had big hype on that one because me and Rowan, I think we saw like a trailer for it when we went to go see a movie this summer. And we were like, oh, it's going to be like an Indian It Follow. So I was like really hyped for that. And I did enjoy the Indian folklore aspect of it and the Indian culture, but the delivery fell a little flat for me. It was just okay. I think they had a really cool concept, but if someone could just take it over and kind of do what they did in The Medium, which I can't stop talking about. And then what else? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I finally watched that. Rowan hasn't.
And I've rewatched it probably since the last time we recorded, but yes.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. I loved it. I watched it with my husband, and he was just there. Like, I put it on. He had no idea. And he was obsessed with it, like, still talks about it. So super fun, crazy. Oh, I watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, finally, like, in full. So that was fun. I liked it. I know a lot of people are, like, kind of shitting on it, but I thought it was decent.
What do you think of Chris Pratt in the end? That was, like, so much of the conversation around that movie coming out. Like, did it bother you at all, him being Mario?
Not really, because I wasn't, like, really picturing him. You know, he's just a voice. Like, I don't really care.
Yeah, I didn't care either in the end.
Because also you have Jack Black as Bowser, and that's all I really give a shit about. Honestly, killed it. What else? I think that's it for movies. But I did go see a musical, like my first musical ever, like in person. So I felt so fancy. I went to New Jersey to see Come From Away, which is... It was on Broadway for a while, but it's about, you know, our home province. And I don't know if it's Rowan's home province, but he lived there with us, Newfoundland. During 9/11, when a bunch of flights got stranded in Gander, which is a small town, and then all these locals like opened up their homes and stuff for them. So I finally saw that. If you're a Newfoundlander, you know about it. It's like... it's like a thing you have to do. It's like a pilgrimage. So I finally watched it. I thought it was really good. I thought the story was really moving. Made me cry like everything does. And it was interesting to go see it with Americans and you know, a room of what I assume is mostly Americans, and see how they react to like the Newfie jokes. Like, there's a Pepsi joke about how they go to Tim Hortons in the morning and they buy Pepsi, which is so funny because that's totally something a Newfoundlander would do because we love Pepsi, man. Yeah. And there's another one about like this gay couple. They come and they try to act like they're not gay in front of the locals because they don't want to get like hate crimed, and they even make a joke about the locals being rednecks in the backwoods of a small Canadian town. But they open up to this random guy, and he's like, oh yeah, you're gay, that's okay, my son is gay. And then suddenly everyone's like, oh yeah, this person's gay, I know this person who's gay. And they make a joke about you know, getting stranded in the most gay town of Newfoundland, which I thought was really cute. But yeah, it was funny. It was well received by everyone around me. And, you know, I felt a little bit of pride. So I really enjoyed it. What else? Let's go to books. Actually, let's go to TV first. Last
what
night,
about the Minotaur milking? I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, we'll get to. Listen.
All right, we're
gonna
edge
you. We're gonna edge you with the Minotaur milking.
Let's go to audiobooks and podcasts.
Jesus Christ! I think I'm depressed because I've been consuming a lot of stuff. Anyways, last night I put on The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, which is what everyone's talking about. I think it's on HBO Max or Hulu. It's this documentary about this girl who they're not sure if she's a little girl or like a scammer. She's also a little person, and this family is saying that they got scammed and she was actually an adult, and then she's finally coming out and speaking about it. So, you know, it's very here and there all over the place. I'm excited to finish it because I did see some of this like kind of play out on social media when it was really popular. So I'm excited to get to the end of that. Also finished the first segment of the new season of American Horror Story, Delicate. They only put out half the season. So I think because of like the writer's strike, eventually we'll get the second part of it, but I really like it. I think Kim Kardashian actually does a really good job. And then books, let's just get into it. Let's just get into the Minotaur and milking farm of it all.
It's gooning time.
Yeah, so I finally read this book that I bought a couple of months ago. Kind of like, just like a meme thing. I saw it and I was like, this is ridiculous, need to buy it. It's a book called, what's it called? Morning Glory Milking Farm. And it is monster porn, to like put it lightly. And I guess I'm into monster porn now because I really liked it.
Now?
I mean, I think I'm learning a lot about myself. This is why The Beauty and the Beast was like always my favorite fairy tale, you know? But anyway, it was really good. I went and downloaded all the rest of this author's books. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read them all for free. And she has a lot.
Great. Shocker.
So actually really good. Love it. My only concern is that these books are like not edited at all because there's like typos and like yeah. So that kind of pissed me off, but you know, she won me over with it. And it's kind of like Hallmark, like it has this Hallmark quality of like being sweet and, you know, falling in love. But at the same time, she's this millennial who's trying to pay off student debt because, you know, she's about to get evicted, so she goes to work at a Minotaur milking farm. And yeah.
Is there a sequel? I'm just curious what the...
It is, and I'm already reading it. It's called Blue Ribbon Romance.
Oh, that's...
What do they use the Minotaur milk for? Like, why do they have a farm? Like, what is it used for? Do they put it in cereal?
It's actually a pharmaceutical facility, and Minotaur semen, because they're semen, they don't make milk, in case you didn't realize that. They use it to put in like Viagra, basically, for humans to use. So that's it. So all these Minotaur come in and they get paid for like donating their semen.
So in this world, everyone who has erectile dysfunction is a swallower.
Yeah, I guess
if they want to fix it. Okay.
So her job as a milk technician, if you really want to know, I'm assuming you do.
I think we're all satiated by it. I think that's enough.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. All right. You're satiated? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, if you're really interested, you know, hit me up. I'll tell you all about it. Or pick up the book. Anyways, I started reading the first Crescent City book because the third one is coming out this month. I have it pre-ordered and I had to get my ass in gear. So I started reading that. It's another Sarah J. Maas book.
She's back.
Oh, yeah. She's releasing like 7 titles this year.
A 2-month break.
Yeah, she's a fucking machine. I also read Poppy's Inferno, which is the second Poppy graphic novel. So I finally read that. It's really cool. It's like Dante's Inferno, but it's Poppy trying to figure out you know, why she died and why she's in hell, and then it goes
like
through
the
like
singer.
Yeah, the singer.
Okay, yeah.
And it goes through like her experience with like the record industry and all that. And it's actually really good. The art's really cool. I liked it better than the first book. I also read From Blood and Ash, which is that fantasy book I was talking about last week, and I really liked it. And for the last thing that I read, I finally read a Colleen Hoover book. And
Ouch.
It was, I know, I've taken a massive shit on Colleen Hoover for a long time, and I've never actually read any of her work, but someone borrowed me the book Verity, and so I actually binged it in like 2 sessions. It was really good, and it should be a movie. It'd make a great A24
I think,
movie.
to be fair,
I'm
though,
serious.
for the dump that you were taking on her, that is, like, from what I understand, the outlier in her whole catalog.
Oh, okay. So I read the good one.
So you read the one good one, and then you're gonna pick up
Okay.
another one now and go, "This is complete shit."
Okay, I'll
what
get
are
back
these
to you on
names?
that.
Why are they named like this?
Yeah.
I'm curious
sure.
if you read another one. Let me know.
I'll
please.
let you know. But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna pound some out that I'm not gonna talk about, because you know my rule, I don't really talk about horror unless we're reviewing it. So obviously I was getting my 2023 top 10 horror list finished, so I had to watch When Evil Lurks and Dark Harvest. They were what was left on my list. So you can see on Letterboxd where I put them. Colton did mention we did see Night Swim, and we have an episode on it, and yeah, go check that out.
It was just such another great entry in WANUARY for me that, you know, it slipped my mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
I watched 2 pretty mediocre comedy specials. I watched the new Dave Chappelle special. You know, he's up to his same old bullshit now, I guess, as usual. A little less of it, but still there. And then I watched Pete Davidson's new one, which was just mediocre. I don't think he's a very good stand-up comedian. I don't mind him. Like, I think he's charming as a celebrity, but he's just, his stand-up isn't my cup of tea.
He can do SNL, but not stand-up. Yeah,
not my cup of tea. And then I rewatched Videodrome and the original Joe Dirt, which I have an affection for. I can't talk. Affection for. Just I remember seeing it when it came out. I quote like Joe Dirt quotes all the time.
So you do have an affliction.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, that was a Freudian slip right there.
And then I watched Joe Dirt 2, which I think is the first half star I've given, if not maybe the second.
Wait, ever?
Ever, maybe.
Oh my God.
This was really bad. All the effects were probably worse than Sharknado and stuff like that. It was made.
Is there a lot of effects in a Joe Dirt movie?
Yeah, because this one's based off Wizard of Oz, so it's about him getting like caught in a tornado, and there's like time travel and all.
Oh, why'd I even ask?
Yeah. Anyway, it was made for the now defunct streaming service Crackle. So, yeah, it just wasn't great. Like, they had like Christopher Walken and stuff in it, and like these guys were just showing up for paychecks. Even like you could tell David Spade didn't want to be there. He was laughing through lines that he was obviously supposed to be reading seriously. They did everything in one take. It wasn't good. I got to catch up on suggested movies I missed from 2023. So finally saw Gran Turismo, which I like actually really enjoyed. I didn't think I was gonna like it. And I had kind of like heard the bubbling. Everyone that I know that saw it was just like, man, it's really fun and like really surprisingly good. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a true story. It was kind of interesting. And I read about it. It seems pretty faithful to the true story. Yeah, it's just a good time. It's like a popcorn movie. Then I, bawled my eyes out watching the Mr. Dress Up documentary, which was just heartwarming. And he was an awesome guy. It's kind of like the Mr. Rogers thing, right? Like this guy's just like impervious There's no flaws. He's just like a sweet old man. And it kind of also was interesting because it led me to following his granddaughter that is on Letterboxd and just writes funny reviews and is obviously like a big horror fan. So I thought that was kind of cool. I finally saw The Holdovers.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. I didn't think I was gonna like it. Like, everything it was described as sounded like something I would hate. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, this is gonna be stupid. I hated Sideways. Like, I'm not a very big fan of that director. So
yeah, Thomas Paine, I think.
Yeah,
maybe, or,
something like that. Alexander Payne.
Alexander Payne,
yeah.
not Thomas. Yeah.
But I thought it was really good. It was really heartwarming, and just, hit you right in the feels for the holidays. I got to see Anatomy of a Fall, which I thoroughly enjoyed. That's probably like, up there in my tops of 2023. I saw Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I also thoroughly enjoyed this.
Also great.
It was super fantastic. I don't know anything about the book. I know Exilia said she read the book when she was a kid, but yeah, the movie was fantastic. I saw Blue Beetle, which I actually liked. I shat on it for the first 10 minutes. And as it kept going, I was like, you know what? I actually kind of like it for a superhero movie. I've been kind of let down. This isn't Citizen Kane, but it's got some cool blues and pinks. Everything's in Miami, so it's that kind of Miami neon light vibe. It's got a Cypress Hill soundtrack, which was pretty cool. George Lopez was super funny in it. He just basically plays Cheech Martin. He's just a stoner grandpa. And
not Cheech Martin.
And I thought it was good. I thought, what I was expecting, it was not that. Then I saw Godzilla -1 finally. And this might be my movie of the year of 2023.
I couldn't believe it. I saw it. I saw the 5 stars coming in. I was like, what on earth?
Being an ex went and saw this, and we both loved it. I was just blown away. I was like, Godzilla's back. I don't know if he ever left, but it was it was kind of refreshing to get this kind of take on it, because we've been so used to all these American ones coming out with Godzilla and Kong and all that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. King of the Monsters is absolute trash, and Godzilla versus Kong or whatever it is isn't much better. So,
but this was good. Godzilla was actually pretty. I wouldn't, I'm not scared, but as a monster, he's pretty terrifying to the story going on. I thought that was fantastic. I watched Good Grief, which is Dan Levy's first directorial debut film. I thought it was okay. I like what he's doing. I like where he's going. I don't think he's got it all there yet. It's very mumblecore. His stuff reminds me of 2010's mumblecore. But yeah, there's just something off about it that I just didn't think it was amazing. I think maybe the story needed to be fleshed out a little more. He did write it also, but I do like what he's doing, where he's going. I saw Society of the Snow. I saw that because I saw Colton watched it. I was curious.
I watched it the day before I went on a flight, Rowan.
Oh, man.
The evening before, and probably not the best choice.
So I knew nothing of this story. I had never seen it live. Yeah. I really liked it. On Letterboxd, I only gave it 3.5, and I kind of feel like I want to up it because I haven't stopped thinking about it. Mm-hmm. I did start watching it live, and I just shut it off because I got halfway through it, and I'm like, this is... Compared to Society of the Snow, I was like, this is not good.
Are you saying that 10-year-old Colton's film criticism wasn't finally tuned yet? Am I wrong? Is Alive not a masterpiece?
Yeah, I think. Like I said, Society of the Snow, it was just very, very harrowing. I said, as someone that didn't know the story, I was like, this is crazy. A movie's always good when it was making me I was Googling everything. I'm looking up documentaries, and I was just very interested in the story. Yeah, it was fantastic. I suggest everyone see it. And then my last 2, which are kind of weird for me. So the other night, I sat down and watched Gudetama, a excellent adventure. And this is fabulous. Everyone watch this. It's so good. It's so happy, yet so horrifying and depressing that it blew my mind. Like, when the ending comes, I won't spoil it or anything, but when the ending comes, I was just like...
Please don't.
No.
Please don't spoil it. Yeah.
I was like, what? And then I like, that was just my expression. I was like, mouth open, what? And, yeah, it was fantastic. Our theme for the night, me and Exilia, was, I think, like, cute, cozy, and calm, 3 C's. So we were, in that mood. And then I watched Rilakkuma and Karuru, which is basically a show. It's like 8 episodes, but they're only like 10 minutes each. And this is fantastic. There's a lot thing I'll leave you with. I think I'd suggest it for like horror fans too. It's pretty cool. It's like stop motion animation, but there's like actually an episode that's very much like, influenced by like The Rain and The Grudge and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just this weird show that's like made for kids, but it's like definitely for adults. It's dealing with like adults going through depression and like all this, basically having midlife crisis. And, I just thought it was it's cute, but very sincere. So I thought it was pretty incredible. I guess I'm on my like Japanese stop motion animation train now.
I can't wait to sleep next episode when you're just here listing off the 10 different anime you watched in the past 2 weeks.
I won't get into how Exilia's been really mad at me because I keep telling her that, if they do an American remake of Gudetama, they'll just make like a white trash version called Gudetom, and he's just the white trash version.
That's hilarious. Gouda Tom, and it's just like this guy named Tom who loves cheese.
Yeah. I like it. Oof. We got something going on here.
Let's start workshopping that.
All right.
Anyway, it's about time. Let's get into it. This is our last episode of WANUARY. And this was chosen by the fans. I was going to say, we can't really say, why you chose it. Only you guys know in your hearts.
Although, it is kind of strange that they still pick this over Insidious or The Conjuring, in my opinion. But here we are.
I am concerned. They hate us. They like to see us in pain.
So, that movie is Dead Silence from 2007. Let's get in the trailer, and then we'll be back with the synopsis and first experiences.
From the writers and director of Saw.
There's an old ghost story about a woman named Mary Shaw.
The ventriloquist who was murdered.
She was buried with her doll collection.
They didn't stay dead.
On March 16th.
They'll come for us, one by one.
If you scream, you die.
She's here.
What's going on? Dead Silence. Rated R. In theaters March 16th.
Dead Silence was directed by James Wan and written by Lee Winnell, and the story is as follows. Shortly after receiving an unmarked package for a ventriloquist dummy, Jamie Ashen's wife meets a grisly end. Her death makes Jamie the prime suspect in her murder case, but without enough evidence to press charges, Jamie is free to head back to his hometown of Ravens Fair in search of answers. There he discovers that his wife is likely the latest victim of Mary Shaw, a woman lynched some 50 years ago and whose ghost has been seeking vengeance on the bloodlines that wronged her and her family of some 101 dolls.
So, is this our first time seeing it, or are we just, we have a whole month to it? Are we one of us closeted James Wan fans that, love Dead Silence, love Insidious, love all these movies? This is the only horror we actually appreciate. Gill, is this your first time seeing Dead Silence?
Sure is. I remember when it came out, but I didn't actually watch it. But I remember seeing the DVD like at my local Irving where you could rent it. But yeah, it was just one of the ones that like slipped through the cracks. What about you, Mike?
I, unfortunately, in an act that I repressed for many years until we decided to do WANUARY, saw it in theaters. Actually, it might have even been like opening night. Because this came out like, in the peak of A, going to see every movie in theaters anyway, because you had money and it was not as expensive. And B, definitely going to see every horror movie in theaters. And yeah, it didn't matter what it looked like. If there was a horror movie coming out, we went. So, yeah. And that was the last time I saw it before I had to rewatch it for this. So, interpret that however you will. Colton, what's your history?
Yeah, I've also seen this before. It was sort of my period when I was living in Toronto for a year, and I had a friend of mine who's James Wan is one of his favorite directors. I was actually going to invite him on this episode, but it just kind of slipped by me to like arrange it all because he probably would have loved to be on this to talk about it. But yeah, I've seen it before. I've also seen Doggy Heaven by James Wan, which is one of his short films. I've seen basically everything by that director other than obviously Aquaman 2 in theaters. I haven't seen that yet. And I haven't seen Stygian, which I believe is like his student film, like, you know, his first feature back in like 2000 or something. I haven't seen that, but I've seen everything else by the guy. So yeah, Dead Silence as well. Only one time in addition to this one, though. What about you, Rowan?
Well, I feel like I kind of lied in Letterboxd because it said I had seen this, and as I was watching it, you know, I turned to Exilia. Exilia, unfortunately, also was watching this with me.
Or fortunately, come on.
Fortunately. And I was like, did we see this in the theater? And she's like, no, I never saw this in the theater. And I'm like, well, then I probably definitely never saw it in the theater. So if I did rent it, I don't remember, but like watching it this time, I do not remember this movie. I mean, kind of like Gill said, like, I remember the poster, I remember the VHS, like, I remember this coming out. I'm not sure why I wouldn't have gone and saw it, but I don't think I did, so I'm gonna count this as my first time actually watching this. But yeah, let's get into the strings and dolls. I don't really have anything witty for this one, guys. I'm sorry. Can someone answer me about the theme song? Is it from something else too? What's going on here?
Are you just talking about the actual score itself, or is there a theme song that I missed?
Well, like the intro, when we get like the James Wan, like the 2000s intro going on.
Dude, it's the same shit he did in *Malignant*. It's like the same.
Yeah,
like,
it's the same song. Yeah,
the same.
It's not
like
the same song.
Vaguely Saw twist-esque song. That's kind of like this.
They did that at the end
thing.
For real, though.
Oh,
at
for
the
100%
end,
real at
music,
the end. If you want to jump in,
but it was Charlie Clouser, and doesn't he like tour with Nine Inch Nails? I think he does. I think he plays in like the Nine Inch Nails live band.
Oh, cool.
That's
why it has that like kind of yeah. No, I just saw the name. I was like, oh yeah, look, I know that name. I didn't even bother to look it up, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, one of my first notes is that this has the very mid-2000s horror score over the opening credit sequence again. Piano with heavy percussions with some rising strings.
It's fucking fire.
And that's
first of all.
My God. I can't stand that sort of score anymore. It feels like it's trying to be cool the entire time. And to be fair,
cool.
No, it's not cool when you try to be cool. That's the thing when I'm listening to it. I'm like, this is so cringy. Maybe if I watched this in 2007, I would have appreciated the score a little bit. But still, I kind of feel like that score is even a little bit late for 2007, really. But yeah, I don't know what it is, but it felt very familiar to me as well. I think it's just literally Saw. I think Saw is what just brings this
and I guess
sort of
maybe
vibe
this was his next film after Saw.
It was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe that. And like you said, Jill, yeah, I'm the same. I did like the intro. Not even necessarily like, I guess, the whole music vibe to it, but like the look of it. I just like the look where we get all this stupid, like, it's like
like blue.
Yeah, the Saw intro, though, where it's like we're seeing like drawn up plans and like dolls, and it's like stuff associated with the movie that like really is just so cheesy, but it's like, I don't know, I just haven't.
It's my favorite part of the movie is like the opening. I was like, oh, this is gonna be so cool, and then it wasn't, but I was like, you know what? That song, Wagner. Also, love that intro. Also, love the ending because it was Saw, but
I thought you were going to say because it was over.
Yeah,
that's like me with Neon Demon. What's your favorite part? No, the credits. You know.
How dare you speak of it?
I know. Did anybody else get like severe magic flashbacks when watching this movie? Mostly with the design of Billy, like the ventriloquist. I was just like, damn, it's been too long now since I've seen Magic, because it's been a couple of years since we covered it.
Oh.
But I was just like, Billy looks identical in my head to Fats from Magic.
My note just says, it ain't no magic.
For me, it was Slappy.
Slappy.
Yeah, which
Goosebumps.
I think is what we discussed like extensively. I feel like on Magic that it was like Slappy.
Right.
Yeah. Do we find like these like creepy dolls, ventriloquists, like scary? Does anyone have like a doll phobia? Okay. All right.
Because when I was a kid, my mom, for some reason, had this collection of porcelain dolls for me, and they're all still in the boxes, right? And she would have them like lined up by the wall. And I would go to sleep. My bed's facing these dolls, and I'm looking at them. I'm like, oh my God, like they're looking at me. I'm gonna die. So eventually I put them like in the attic. But I think it's a pretty like common fear for like little girls especially. And I remember like, you know, reading Goosebumps or Shivers books that, you know, they're my porcelain dolls killed me or, you know, whatever. So for me, I think I have this like inherent fear of dolls and especially the ventriloquist.
Is your mom's maiden name Shaw by any chance?
No. Can we also, since we're talking about that, can we talk about the horrendous slant rhyme of Shaw and dolls? Because it doesn't rhyme, and it really cheapened that little, like, folk rhyme for me, and I was pissed.
Well, I mean, not every poem has to have, like, rhyming stanzas, you know? You can go elsewhere.
I can go elsewhere, but the next line rhymed, and this one was a slant rhyme, and that's just, like, inexcusable.
I think it's more inexcusable that I don't remember in the movie them finishing the rhyme and talking about how there's a need for silence, unless I missed it. Maybe I did miss it. But like in the special features and like the alternate ending and stuff for this movie, they finish the rhyme and it talks about how like you can't scream, but also how basically you need to be silent. And that's a very important detail to this movie, considering its title is Dead Silence. And I find it strange that in the rhyme that's probably repeated half a dozen times, they never do like the complete nursery rhyme that's like used in the marketing or, you know, like I said, the alternate ending. I thought it was an interesting detail. The rhyming didn't bother me so much. I actually thought it was like cute to have the little poem, obviously, to kind of give us the gist of like what this entity was going to be.
Very Freddy. 1-2 Freddy's coming for you.
Absolutely. Rhymed. Yeah. But what do we think of Mary Shaw? I think this movie's a little bit interesting because it's like part a creepy doll movie and part a ghost story. It's also part of a couple of other things as well. But those are kind of like the two main beats of it. And for me, I just thought the ghost story aspect was a lot more effective than the creepy doll portion. I just kind of, whenever Billy was on screen or whenever we were dealing with the dolls, I was kind of just like, I'm good. I don't really care about these. I thought Mary Shaw was frightening at times. I liked, you know, like the billowing curtains and that sort of thing.
She was scary.
I think that took away from the doll. Like, I think that made the doll aspect of it less creepy and scary.
Mm-hmm.
Is the thing. It was better, like you said. But yeah, it was. If the cursed dolls had been kind of like the only aspect of the movie, I feel like it would have been stronger as a like creepy like
doll movie.
Yeah, but like it's I feel like okay, there's this other thing. So to me, like especially considering like all the marketing is the dolls and you know, they're like the vehicle. Like, why would you take away from that? You know, like,
I think that's
such a weird choice.
That's a very James Wan thing to do, right? Like in his horror, he likes to take, you know, something that's already kind of like a staple in horror, and he tries to add a different element to it and like keep you on your toes, like Insidious. You've got like the, you know, like the not scientific, but like the astral projection thing. Mm-hmm. And then you have like the possession or like ghost story. Same thing with the Conjuring and like religion and then like hauntings and stuff. But also for this movie, like he's got the creepy dolls, which work on their own, but doesn't mix well, like you said, with the other part, which is like the haunting. I think they kind of go together in a way because like the doll needs to be possessed. Yeah. So what better way than to possess it with like, you know, this scary woman, and like they tie their story together with what happened to her. Mm-hmm. So I think like the concept could work, but maybe in this movie they didn't do it in the best way, but I think it could have worked.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. I think with most of these creepy doll movies, we do wind up getting the backstory at some point of whatever entity is possessing the doll, right? Usually it's in like the third act that it winds up completely ruining most of what you watched. But I mean, with like Annabelle, for example, if we just want to continue down the James Wan trajectory, eventually we get the whole backstory laid out for Annabelle in like 2 or 3 movies as well. That is just, you know, technically, yeah, it's a creepy doll, but there is like something kind of puppeteering it from, you know, this dark force or this entity or something, right? So this one's a little bit more apparent, though. It's like basically right up front. I think like when he gets to the hotel, you see Mary Shaw like pretty apparent right away. So it's very much like, okay, it's not just like a cursed object or something. There's literally, you know, there's ulterior motives from beyond kind of working with this doll.
Maybe that's what I didn't like about it.
That is so apparent up front.
Yeah.
And my issue was just that I thought they did a bad job by separating it so early. Because, I mean, to me, like, for this shtick to work with, like, you know, magic or anything like that, like, at least half of the movie, I have to think that these dolls are, like, sentient and, like, doing these things where you pretty much know off the bat, like you said, that it's, like, her kind of controlling them. So then to me, well, then the dolls really aren't that scary. I'm not scared of the dolls. I'm scared of her then.
Yeah.
So to me, like, it just ruins anything with the dolls. Cause I'm just putting her in the doll. Like, I'm like, all right, well, this isn't Billy. This isn't like some evil Billy spirit or something. Like, it's just Mary Shaw fucking around. Who also, like, you know, how many times are we going to use these contact lenses, guys? Like, it just looks like the woman from Insidious. Like,
yeah, well, this was out before Insidious.
Yeah, I know that. So. I know that. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I get that he like building, you know, we had the intro that was like Saw and then Insidious woman that's like this woman, but I don't know, man. I don't know if I like it all so connected like this.
Yeah, I think with James Wan's career, you can kind of look at the building blocks that like lead into each movie. And this one in particular, like, I know it was like in basically development hell because essentially they didn't believe Saw was going to work. So they wanted like an insurance policy. They wanted a surefire bet because Saw, this little indie movie, obviously is going to fail. So we want something that's bigger budget, going to get people's butts in seats. And it just took too long, I think, like to make it and bring it to market. And also, like, I think Leigh Whannell's been very open talking about how, like, he hated writing this movie and hated working on it. And basically, he's never written in this way ever again, where essentially you take the money up front and then you have a due date and delivery date and you got to have it finished by. Because he just felt
that
like...
explains everything.
Yeah, he couldn't like, apparently, like, wrap his mind around how to make this movie completely work. He was just rushed. And then after, at a certain point, when he turned in a draft and they just brought in like script doctors and changed it to whatever that the studio wanted it to be, essentially. So like, yeah, he actually used to have a blog that he used to write about all the time, and he had a very extensive one on Dead Silence called like Dud Silence, the hellish filmmaking behind it or something. That like, yeah, he was very open that he hated writing this movie.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think Rowan kind of zeroed in on probably what is a big issue with this movie up front, where it's kind of diverting like what the audience is like getting scared by. Like, you know, literally it's like we're going in expecting this creepy doll movie, and then, you know, it's like very much like, oh no, now there's a creepy woman ghost movie additional to this creepy doll movie, where it's like obviously there's very different expectations with both of those. Like what you were saying with the doll, you have to believe that the doll is alive. You know, part of the reason why these creepy dolls are scary is because they're just sitting in your room, kind of like what Gill was saying. You see their eyes move every now and then. It's all subtle, right? Where with like this big ghost apparition revealed within the first 20 minutes is the opposite of that, right? It's very like, oh, obviously, like, you see that in your room, it's time to leave the house. Like, you know, like, you know, it's too far gone. It's very different vibes. And like, yeah, like I said, I think, or like you said, Rowan, I think it would have worked better if they kind of kept it contained until you got Mary Shaw's backstory. Where things that were happening could have been more subtly explained by like the cursed doll or something, which is probably a little bit more like what happens in The Conjuring, if I remember correctly. It's more of like, obviously there's a possession, but it's tied to like the cursed object. You know, it's kind of all contained the Annabelle in those movies for the, you know, at least a good portion of it.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, to me, like, I don't know, maybe I'm impervious to James Wan jump scares. I wrote a note about it, and then I was like, man, I sound like a fucking asshole. Because my note literally says that I feel like his scares are very pedestrian. That it's just like,
You are an asshole.
That's like the most pretentious way to say that, yeah.
But I mean, like, you know, I've said before, I've said since we started this month, I mean, my big issue, you know, I do love Malignant, but it wasn't I loved Malignant for the scares. But I've always said, like, my issues with Juan and a lot of his stuff has always been that, like, I don't think it's scary. I think he makes stuff that I would probably find scary, like, in elementary school or, like, junior high or something.
Exactly.
But to me, like, once you've seen, like, a horror movie, just, like, the techniques he uses, I just don't think make anything scary. Like, where we actually get, the silencing, like, when everything goes silent, it's like, all right, well, I can pretty much count it out that in like 3 seconds, you're going to try to do some stupid jump scare, which usually is terrible because the camera graphs it to you. Like, there's a scene where he's looking in a mirror, but the camera's like off angle just enough that I know exactly where the face is going to show up in the mirror.
100%. Yeah, it's like, oh, this is awkward framing here. Why is he not using rule of thirds or center framing? It's just, he's off. It's weird. And then you're like, oh, that's why. There's the face. I was waiting for it. I did think one very small scene in the movie I thought was a little unsettling. And it was just, I liked her face in the shadows in the attic right before Henry's death, where he kind of goes up there and he's like investigating. I think it's like his wife Miriam or whatever up in the attic. Then he's kind of like getting rid of the dummy, and he goes up there and it winds up being obviously Mary Shaw. But I liked the shot of her face just kind of slowly like coming out of the dark. I thought that was a pretty good shot, and then of course it goes off the rails and her big tongue comes out and all that stuff. But for a moment there, I was like, oh, this is a good like little ghost story shot. Like, it's unsettling, and I thought the makeup was pretty good. I saw that apparently makeup applications for that character would be like 4 hours every day, which is yeah, I mean, there's a lot of makeup on the go.
Yeah, they looked good, especially, and all the victims as well, with their tongue snatched out or whatever. Yeah. I thought the makeup was pretty well done. However, the special effects is like the opposite of that, because that scene, I think it's like in that attic or that room with like all the dolls lined up in the like the glass boxes, when their faces start to like, warp so out. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it was very the special effects in Event Horizon level. Like, oh, they used Windows 95 to make this. Got it.
Well, and this is like one of those cases too, because I think about something like the Conjuring movies and stuff like that. Like, this is a case where I think, if you're gonna use, like CGI, you gotta be at that level of directing where they're giving you the money to make it look good. Where, like, obviously, like, Saw's a big hit, but I mean, I doubt he was getting, Conjuring money to make Dead Silent. So
no, this was a $20 million budget, but like, I can tell that most of this budget went to makeup. It went to like designing dolls. It went to probably the set of literally Mary Shaw's house, right?
It's insane.
Estate, right?
It's like, insane.
It's so over the top, like gothic, weird house that it's like cheesy. It's so over the top. It is a good set, but like the way it's lit and the way they're showcasing it, I was just like, oh, this is kind of. It looks very stagey to me. Like, it looks very much like a set. And once again, it's a shame because obviously they spent a fortune to make this place look good, but it's just like the way it was showed off to me, I didn't really like that much.
It also didn't like make much sense. Like, how did she have this much money to have this like crazy like estate with like the theater and like him like having to get into a boat to like
on
get
an
to it and
island,
stuff. Yeah, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why does she have all this money? But also,
like Vaudeville did not make you a millionaire.
Really good ventriloquist. But also his so Jamie, the main character, his dad's mansion is also like another big set.
Yeah.
So, like, they're making all these big sets with all these curtains and, like, all these little details. And I thought it was amazing. It just didn't, like, really match up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when Jamie went home. And I was like, oh, this guy's, like, Richie Rich. Like, he actually has, like, a mansion. And I was just like, oh, I never got that vibe from him within the first, couple of scenes.
Like, sorry, you have a little 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked that when he comes home, if anyone didn't figure out what was going on within the first scene. Because I'm like, you literally can see her throat moving. I was like,
oh, really?
Okay, I never noticed that. I didn't. And I've seen this movie before.
I'm like, her
didn't
throat's
notice it.
moving. Her hands are placed exactly like a ventriloquist doll. Like she's got one hand on his back where you can't see, the other hand on his shoulder every time they're in a scene.
Well, people aren't looking for that.
No, but
for the
I also,
most part, you know?
like, you can see the throat move, but I think they're pretty clever with it, where it's like you can see it for like a couple of frames. But when they cut to like the close up, you can't see like when you cut to the father, you don't see like her hand like in behind him and stuff as he's talking. Like they frame her out of the shots usually, like when he's talking and whatnot.
But even his makeup too. Like, I mean, he's in the suit.
Okay,
he's got makeup on.
He just had a stroke, Rowan. Come on, you gotta pay attention.
Just subtle enough to look like a ventriloquist doll. And the real issue here is you shouldn't do this. This has been done better. It's called Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They did the ultimate human ventriloquist doll.
I thought you were going to say it's Weekend at Bernie's, which...
Well, I mean, I guess Weekend at Bernie's also.
I was just belaboring it. That I never noticed it. It was the sort of thing where in the third act, I was like, "Whoa, the Saw twist!" You know, like the music kicking in. This is how he ate the soup. I was losing my mind. I was like, "All right, this is good shit." We were kind of talking about the aesthetics of the movie, and that's one thing with *Malignant* we didn't really talk about too much. Like, I mean, obviously we mentioned the giallo inspirations and whatnot, and for me, like, why it didn't work. But I think Wan's filmography, I think he's kind of known for like these really harsh blue lights and really harsh red lights clashing against one another. And I just noticed it like all over this movie to like, you know, an insane degree. Like, this happens in a lot of horror movies where you get a room at the motel, and I'm just like, there is no motel in existence that would have a pulsating neon sign shining in through
right
the room.
outside the window.
And then also, when you go into the bathroom, which we've all been to hotels, you know, usually the bathroom's in the back, usually elsewhere, you still see the sign? I'm like, what size is this sign? This is insane. So I was just like, it was so apparent in this that it's like he has this visual identity that is just all over this movie, and I don't know if it worked. It felt very dated to me, all this blue and washed out gray.
It was very 2007.
I did like it.
Oh, you liked it,
I did
Mike?
like it, but
Yeah.
I'm a big sucker for that, especially when it's very artificial. Like, there was, like you said, there's no way that you could make that actually logistically work.
Yeah.
And I did think it was kind of stupid, but I also kind of loved it because he was just like, fuck it, I like to do this. This is what I'm doing. And I've always been a sucker for like a good, crazy, like, lighting in like a hotel room or like a bar or something where like the ceiling fan is going around and then you see the shadow on like the wall and the floor. And I'm like, the light isn't above it. Why are you seeing the shadow? But I fucking love it. It's just like, it's a mood for me. Do I think it contributed anything? No.
To be fair, it is actually motivated.
Illogical.
I guess in the hotel scene, at least, like they do go and say like, oh, it's the neon sign, where there are some movies where they just wouldn't explain it at all. It'd just be weird ass red lights and blue lights and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie was crazy. There was like his red car, like the red rugs, the red carpet, the red railings, Billy's bow tie is red, the blood is all red. It's just like
the police lights.
Yes, like it was just crazy the amount of like harsh blue and red throughout the entire movie. And for me, it was just like, some people would probably argue that's better than our modern lighting, where our modern lighting is like, it's all too dimly lit. You can't see anything. There's basically no style to it. But it was something that I just wanted to note. Like, it was very much of its time when I was watching it. It instantly made this feel like it was like the mid 2000s sort of movie to me.
Yeah, it definitely dates it. I will say we brought up the plot there, and I did note, like, isn't it kind of ridiculous that all of this happening just because one kid was like, I see your throat moving? I'm like, you've never been heckled once? It's just this one kid.
And you're clearly a whatever in the, like, old vaudeville times counted as a millionaire, so based on the estate.
All the time. So, like, I'm just like one kid and you're just killing the whole town, essentially.
Yeah, I will say they do a bad job of, like, trying to set her up as, like, remotely, like, a sympathetic character, because, yeah, when you kind of drill down, it's like, yup, it's all just because one kid heckled her one time, you know? Which, most of the time with ghost stories and stuff, they always try and make the ghost, like, sympathetic at some point, right? Like, usually the way to get rid of the ghost is, like, some form of, like, reconciliation, like, laying them to rest or something like that. This one's very much like, there isn't really a way to reconcile this because it's just some kid that she turned into a marionette. Like, you know?
Yeah.
So it was just a very strange beat to me as well. I liked the scene, and I liked actually a lot of those flashback scenes. My favorite scene in the entire movie is the morgue sequence that I'll probably get into in a minute or two. But it was a very strange detail. I agree that, like, just dozens of people murdered over the years purely because of one kid was like, I could see your mouth moving, and it's very obvious she's not very good at ventriloquism.
And I know our listeners, so I know they're screaming right now. So I do want to recognize, I know, young Henry, Kier Gilchrist from
that's one of my notes. It's just Kier with like 4 exclamation points.
From It Follows. Yeah,
I never write one of those a name, bunch of exclamation point notes about a man, but he's one of the few that gets it.
Who's he in It Follows? I mean, it's been a while since I've seen
it. He plays the best friend, the guy that wants
the
to.
one who has a
you
crush
are
on,
right. Yeah, like on the front porch
but
and stuff. Okay.
Also, you're not saying one of the other things that we should worship him for, which is United States of Terror.
Oh wow, yeah, that's one of my favorites. I've definitely seen that.
Y'all need to get some class and go watch United States of Terror, okay?
But you brought up Colton, and I wanted to focus on that for a second, just because that's one of the good points I had. You know, we talk about her killing the kid, and she turns him into the ventriloquist doll or whatever.
Yeah. Are you talking about Mary Shaw?
Yeah, we're talking about Mary Shaw. Yeah.
Okay. But you guys forgot about
Dead Silence, the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. But you guys, what about the fact that they cut out her tongue? Like, that's more reason to be vindictive than anything.
Yeah, but they cut out her tongue.
The cutting out the tongue is warranted because she stole a child and turned him into a fucking marionette.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
But what I was saying
I thought we just forgot about that part.
What I was saying is, like, at the ending where we get, the body of that kid and he's kind of like decrepit, and that was like one of my favorite things in the whole movie. And then they just drop the ball on actually using him. Because I was like, oh shit, she's going to control this like deep, rotting corpse ventriloquist doll. She like lifts him up and then just drops him. And it's like, no, we're like, that's it. We didn't get any of that. And I was like, what a shame. Because I thought that was like the best looking thing in the whole movie.
I actually
could have had aliens like get away from her, you bitch, exoskeleton thing.
That would have been something special for sure. I actually agree though, Rowan, that I think they really failed on kind of showcasing that she also made dolls partially out of human remains, because when she's kind of like explaining about like, her pursuit to make the perfect doll, she mentions that she sometimes have to resort to like imperfect parts, like human parts, and they show a couple of quick snippets, and I'm like, her doll collection would have been way cooler if when you saw them all lined up there, like they were clearly like there was parts of like humans and some of them rotting monster, and like gross, like it would have been way cooler. But instead they just all looked like Billy.
It's true. No, for sure.
Yeah, it's just like that would have been way better. And I think it's kind of implied when Jamie goes in the water like near the end of the movie and he's kind of like rooting around and there's like some like faces and stuff. I think the implication is maybe those were kind of like the imperfect dolls or whatever. But once again, it's just not apparent enough and it's not like showcased enough to like be creepy at that point. I was just kind of like confused. Like what's that essentially?
And think this just 1 year before True Blood. Just the 1-2 punch.
We gonna talk about Mr. Ryan Quanten, who plays Jason Stackhouse in True Blood. What a hottie!
He's so bad though.
Like,
oh my god!
Are you? I thought he actually like tried his best to like make this good.
That's the issue. That's the issue. Okay,
are you
hang on.
serious?
He wasn't good.
No, I will give you this.
Female gaze.
Jill, no, Jill. Listen, Jason Stackhouse. Yes, that is the role that he was born to play, because it's like I feel like he was playing himself or something. It just feels like it fits.
Just a little himbo.
Just like kind of he's just like a little bit stupid, but this was like oh god no.
I just love him.
We need to erase your whole filmography other than True Blood.
He was terrible in this movie. He was just
good to
so
look at.
mopey the entire time. I mean, you can enjoy him for that, I guess.
Mopey.
That's what you're looking for. He's just fucking mopey the entire movie. So boring. I was just like, I would have cast literally almost anybody else other than this dude.
God.
Clearly,
I'm
they
not gonna
cast him
lie.
just for his look, but I was just like, he got no talent. At least in this. Maybe he's good in True Blood, but he was awful.
Yeah, he is.
He's charming in True Blood, but it's the character.
You.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who I cast in everything is Donnie Wahlberg. Because
Oh my
I
God.
was
Listen.
fucking pumped when he was in this.
Donnie Wahlberg has absolutely no charisma. That's like one of my last notes.
I agree. Donnie Wahlberg sucks in this movie too, Mike.
Fucking love Donnie Wahlberg. His Instagram is always just impeccable.
Okay, sure, but like Juan just bringing back like another weird, quirky, stupid police character that I'm just like, God, I'm getting malignant flashbacks, and I'm like going over my heads, and I'm like, okay, there was like some of those in Saw as well, and I'm like, does he just always do this? Because this detective sucks. Just like shaving himself all the time. He's like in like the Perps motel room shaving himself. Just talking.
But also, like, the thing that bothered me the most, all of those things bothered me, but I was like, why? So, this woman was horrifically murdered. Also, I'm just gonna say, I did a reading, my very first note of this movie was Quentin and his twink. So I did the whole reading of this movie where he was actually in a gay couple, and so that was. But anyway, it didn't improve. It didn't improve.
That would have made it. It would have made it better.
I saw a lot of Letterboxd reviews that said that people read it like that to make it more fun.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I tried, but it actually didn't work. But yeah, the thing that bothered me the most was the fact that he took this like absolutely key piece of evidence and was just trotting around the state with this doll instead of having it in like an evidence locker. It's like, why did you bring that with you? And you're just like throwing it around. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know why that bothered me so much.
To bury it.
What's even worse is he follows him, digs it back up, brings it back, and he's like, this is important. This is part of the case. This is evidence. The next morning, he's like, all right, I gotta go drive around. And he leaves the door unlocked.
Yeah, right. Like, that's what I'm
steal it.
saying. Like, if that was, like, your priority would be, like, get that and get it back to, like, the police station or whatever.
No.
Like, no, it's just, like, I'm gonna go on a, like, magical mystery tour.
So, yeah, this guy is, like, I was gonna say a really bad cop, but maybe he's just a cop. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's just, like, he stumbles across this body of this kid, right? All strung up like a marionette. Doesn't call back up, doesn't do anything, just doesn't care really. No reaction. And then his first reaction when like there's like this weird spirit kind of flying around possessing dolls is just to fire just like nonstop shotgun like at all the dolls. And oh my God, this is like such a terrible scene. Like Jill already mentioned with obviously the visual effects like changing all their faces and whatnot, but I'm just like, bro fires off like a dozen rounds at all these dolls. You're just like wildly firing. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't care about any police work or like any finding out what exactly happened here or to his wife at the beginning of the movie. But you know, a chance to shoot off his shotgun. Living for it, you know, can't wait.
So do we want to have a conversation? Like, I think we all watch the alternate ending and stuff. Like,
oh, please. Like,
yeah, we can if you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm just curious, did anyone like that better than
100%.
the normal ending?
It wouldn't have made it a good movie, but it would have vastly improved it. Except for the fact that I would have been sat down watching it for like an extra 4 minutes. But other than that, I was like we watched it today, so like for context, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Colton, texted it to the group chat and we just like had a quick combo about it. And I was like, oh my God, like this is because one of the weird things about this movie to me was that like they do the twist and then the movie ends. And I'm like shouldn't there be more explication? But anyway, I don't know. I
think I like the original ending better, but I think the only reason I like it better is because they fail to develop that character throughout the movie as like interesting at all. Like,
yeah.
I forget her name now. Ella, who's like the perfect
I'm just
doll.
like Amber Valletta.
Yeah, at the end of the movie. I would have liked it if she was like a little bit more like integral to the plot or like in more scenes. And essentially in the alternate ending, they just seem to kind of do like the Saw flashback and show how she was like behind it all and she was always part of it, but she just wasn't in the movie the entire time. There are aspects I like about it. Like, I like how the actual ending is where she's kind of like has him in the bed as like the ventriloquist dummy and like basically he's leaning in, telling him the Mary Shaw nursery rhyme and like basically saying you have to stay silent and all that stuff. Like, that's good and menacing, and I also actually like the framing of like the family photo and stuff better.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice part.
Yeah, it was just for the movie itself we were watching. That would have been like even more out of nowhere, where at least this one's just like a quick twist, like showing like, oh, the father here as the ventriloquist and he's eating soup, and quick cut where it's like, okay, he's dead, he became a puppet, and it's a family photo again. It's just that family photo was like shitty, essentially. Like the one they show us with like the really bad like visual effects, like blush on like the characters and stuff. It looked really bad aesthetically. So there was aspects where I think like a mixture of the two would have worked better for me. I just thought kind of like the big Saw revelation in the actual movie we got was like better revelation, whereas this one felt like longer. Like they had to explain more of like what Ella was doing because she just wasn't in the movie, right? So some mixture of both probably would have been better. I didn't hate it though. I didn't hate the alternate ending.
Yeah, I felt pretty much the exact same way. I'm assuming they just cut it because, like you said, Colton, I felt like that second ending just totally felt like the Saw ending. I'm sure he was just like, I can't have it exactly the same, so I'm going to cut it so it still feels the same. I don't really know what the whole point of it was, other than, like you said, that she's just not a developed character, and I feel she could have been a more interesting character than half of the characters in this, so it's kind of
she
a
was
shame.
Wasted. How dare you waste Amber Valletta? Like,
yeah, she should have been the character in this movie where she's the stepmom, but also he has no wife at this point, so she could have been like doing like the flirting with him, maybe overstepping. Like she's more age appropriate, and it could have like been like, oh, why is she taking such an interest in his life? Why is she like looking into like what happened to his wife and stuff? And obviously it winds up being that like she's part of it all, right? Like pulling the strings and whatnot. Would have been a little bit more interesting there.
Also interesting that the alternate ending shows Ryan Quinton being even worse of an actor, because when he's screaming, he keeps lapsing. You can hear his like Australian accent coming out. Which reminds me hilariously of Saw when Cary Elwes is screaming and his British accent comes out. I'm like, James Wan does love them actors just not keeping their dialect right.
I thought you were going to say where he's like sitting in the bed at the end and they got him all done up to look like the marionette or like the ventriloquist dummy. He just looks so goofy. It was like, wasn't remotely unsettling. He just looked terrible. Yeah. We mentioned that with Feels Like Saw. For me, a lot of it is like the way it's edited. I feel like this movie was probably a much more normal movie before they were like, yo, we can transition by like zooming into people's eyes and like having like the eyes framing the shots. They literally start the movie with that transition of like zooming into Billy's eye. And then they use that transition.
James Wan, though.
Oh, God, it is.
Like Malignant.
Once again, I don't like Malignant. I don't care if it's James Wan.
I just had flashbacks to Malignant the whole movie.
It's just in the first 10 minutes, they use specifically the eye transition. Like the exact same one, like 3 times. They use it with Billy, they use it with his wife, I think it's Lisa her name is, and then they use it with literally him. And I'm like, why does he love this transition? It's so like showy and cheesy and bad. And then I just start noticing all the transitions of the movie, like the weird like wipes that like Star Wars uses, or like the kind of like multiple fades on top of each other, or like the Ravens like fair sign. Do you guys see that, where it's like he's driving on the road of Ravens Fair and then the camera pulls over to show the sign and then he's driving on the sign as well, and then it like fades in and shows like the city and stuff, and I'm just like, these are some awful transitions. I'm sorry, like sure they're creative, but they're
he would have a great time with Windows Movie Maker.
Oh, he was loving it.
James Wan, He thought it looked badass. Yeah. You know, he was like, oh shit, see what I did there with this transition?
I'm surprised it wasn't like the big star coming in, like expanding out. Yeah. Like the swirls, you know?
Star Wipe,
classic.
Yeah, it was very distracting to me. And a lot of that stuff made it feel like Saw to me because, Saw to me, not Saw to me. if you go back and listen to that, it literally says to me, it makes it sound like I'm saying sodomy. It made it feel like Saw to me because there's been a discussion online about how horrible the editing is in Saw. Like there's scenes where they'll be sitting in like an interrogation space, like, you know, and basically a car will drive up into the foreground of like the interrogation space to like literally to use it as a cut, and it's just like, obviously it makes absolutely no sense. Like, why would a car be in the room? But like Saw has a bunch of weird ass cuts like that when I was watching this, I was like, yeah, you can tell, like, basically the studio was like, yeah, this is fine, but let's make it more like Saw, you know?
Sodomy.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, when you think about it, goes with my reading of the movie of Ryan Quentin and the Twink.
Stop it!
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's all coming together.
So are you guys ready to go to rating this? Or
No, because we haven't talked about the morgue scene, which is the best scene in this movie.
Here we fucking go.
This is a good scene where I have a few things in my notes. I have like probably 50 notes, and I got like 4 or 5 things highlighted in this that we have to talk about. And I think Henry as a child in the morgue, like also with like the lead up of the dialogue of basically Mary Shaw being explained that like in death she wanted to be turned into a doll, and him kind of discovering that in the morgue and all that stuff. I thought that was a great little scene. That felt like just like a little short film to me in this movie that feels completely like not with the rest of the movie. Like it's completely stands out. It's like probably a 2 or 3 minute little sequence. And I thought it was great. I thought it was like kind of scary, like where the gurney like kind of falls over on him. She tumbles over the floor. The camera pans back. She's gone. And she's kind of floating and all that stuff. I thought it was a very effective scene. I don't know if you guys felt the same, but I love that sequence.
Yeah. I liked it too.
I like the crawl space in the morgue. Crawl spaces creep me out, so...
Yeah, and it's huge.
Yeah, it's massive. I guess that doesn't really count, because that wasn't part of that scene, but it's part of that setting.
Yeah, part of the setting, yeah.
I didn't think they used the crawl space very well when they did use it, but... Yeah, just another L, I guess, that Juan's taken from me, that it was ripe.
Yeah, I also thought that, like, right after that scene, too, where they kind of show all of the killings throughout the years, how they all had their tongues removed, and they were kind of framed in the family photos, which obviously is paid off to a very, very slight degree in the ultimate ending. I thought a lot of that was interesting as well, just because it did give me, like, the slightest of, like, sinister vibes of just when you see, like, all the snuff films of the families killed off and stuff. It was very quick, but I was like, oh, I like this as well. Like there was a couple of like beats at that section in the movie that I was latching on to, because I think that was right after kind of like the revelation of like her being heckled and all that stuff. We were getting like the lore dump for Mary. And yeah, I just thought that was a really effective sequence there.
Another one of my issues with this movie is that it makes a villain out of a childless woman. Stop making women who do not have children the villain.
You missed it. She has 101 children.
Okay, well...
Yeah, Mike.
You gagged me. Okay, moving on.
So yeah, let's land the plane and get into rating this. So if you're new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Colton, what would you rate Dead Silence?
I said in our group chat that you can't really get a worse Juan movie for me than Malignant, and I gave Malignant an A. So this, I didn't like this very much on a first viewing. I gave it definitely a negative review. But on this viewing, I think the latter half of the movie gets slightly better. Like, it's more entertaining. I don't think it's actually good in the second half, but there's aspects that I like. I do think Mary Shaw is pretty effective as, like, the traditional woman in black ghost. And once you get past, like, kind of, like, some of the mopiness and whatnot in the first half, I thought it was all right. So it's going to be a very, very light okay from me.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't absolutely hate it. It was slightly... all right, by the end of it.
I'm shocked.
And also, the Saw twist, I was literally like, I can't believe I didn't remember this from, like, when I watched this, like, 5 or 6 years ago. I was just like, this is such a blatant Saw twist that I was just like, laughing. That was good. Anyways, Jill, what are you rating this?
I don't even want to, like, read my notes, because you guys are going to, like, take the giantest shit on me, but I'm gonna read it because I stand by it. Like, you did not persuade my opinion. Okay, so I wrote that Ryan Quentin really showed his acting chops in Dead Silence.
Oh God.
And I think he tried his best, and I love him, and I love the concept of the movie, which, like I said, this would have been something I would be obsessed with as a kid. We kind of touched on that. If I saw this when it came out in 2007, I think I would have connected with it more. It's definitely a product of, like, the mainstream horror scene at the time. It's just something you'd put on and have friends over and you'd be like, oh, it's so scary. And we see lots of of James Wanisms, like the Saw unraveling of everything at the end, which like shocked me. I did not expect that to happen. Like I was like half asleep at this point because it was dragging on. But when it got to that part, I was like, holy shit. So, it got me. And some of the shots are very James Wan. The set's very James Wan. So this is perfect for WANUARY. And despite all that and the opening banger, you know what? This just doesn't hit in 2024 for me as it would have hit in 2007 when I was a teenager. I think it's really easy to focus on the flaws, the cheesiness of everything, like the animation we were talking about. It drags on, and I was checked out before the ending, which I should have cared more about while it was happening. And for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Dead Silence an okay as well. There are a few redeeming qualities that save this from being a total nay. It's not good, but it's mediocre, and I think at the time I would have loved it. It just could have been executed more effectively. But what about you, Rowan?
So this is tough. So I kind of changed my opinion while we talked about it. So I was going to come in with an okay, a light okay, but I think I'm coming in with an A. Like, I just really didn't like this. I do get it's not for me. I really feel, like I said before, that I just feel like Juan's target audience is a lot younger than me. And like I can see him being useful for like a gateway horror guy. Well, I shouldn't say gateway horror, but like a beginner's horror, like just jump scares, pedestrian. Yeah, let me get
training wheels.
Let me get my monocle on here. This wasn't for me. I thought this was pretty boring. Like I said, I anything that was coming at me, I was kind of guessed it right away before it came. So when it did, try to jump out at me, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you're exactly where I thought you were. So, yeah, I think for that, it's going to be an A. I just think there's better things you can watch with ventriloquist dolls, specifically magic. And also, I'd much rather you just watch Goosebumps, the TV show with Slappy, which, at least that's like super campy and fun. And like that has a reason to kind of not be scary because that's actually a kid show. So I'm gonna go in with an A. I gotta even the score out a little bit. How about you, Mike?
Speaking of evening out the score, I am also roundly gonna come in with an A.
What is going on?
Listen, so the things. So it did nothing for me, first of all. Second of all, the Juanisms that I really enjoyed in Malignant, that especially in Malignant would have been dated, that movie to me just had a lot more going for it, and it was more enjoyable. And in this, they were just like kind of tired, and it's like lazy, I guess. But also, there was just too many men in this movie for me. Like, they wasted Amber Valletta. I will never forgive James Wan and Lee Whannell for that. Like,
this
they
is definitely
wasted her.
A very manly movie. I agree.
It's just too many men, and I think that's the issue. And like, the only woman is like a fucking ghost ventriloquist woman, and she's not even in it for enough, obviously, because it's like 8 movies wrapped into one. But yeah, it was unfortunately a one that did less than nothing for me. I liked it less this time than I did. And I mean, listen, it might have been, I didn't remember barely anything about it except that I didn't like it from when I first saw it. So maybe that like tainted my viewing. I don't know. It's possible. But I also don't care. So, it's an all-around nay for me. It's just too much of things I don't like and not enough of things I do. It wasn't campy enough for me. It wasn't just anything. Yeah, nay. It did nothing for me. I don't want to watch it again ever.
Oh my god.
Like, if somehow we have to do a requel or whatever of this episode in 5 years' time because somebody donates $1,000 to us and wants us to rewatch it, I will guarantee you I will not be watching it again.
That's shameful, Mike. I had to review Malignant twice on this show. You're not even willing to do it. Dead silence.
That's fucking brutal.
Yeah.
So, 2 okays, 2 nays. Let's find out what you guys thought of it. see how we line up with everybody. So yeah, we gave you our opinions. We asked you what you thought, and we did get some answers. So we had one response come in on Twitter from Liam from Seen Unseen. And he said, there is truly nothing like this movie, and I mean that as a slight gripe and a deep compliment.
I mean, it is true. There is nothing like this movie. It is singular.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not
once again, we
that.
discussed how it's like part creepy doll movie, part ghost story, part just weird movie. So yeah,
very like Frankenstein together,
probably
like the
accurate.
dolls.
And then we had a bunch of responses come in on Instagram. Dead silence, just, creating a frenzy.
It's crazy. The people voted for this and they came out in droves.
That's right. So, the first one was from Mr. Kibbs. He said, I remember seeing it years ago. I don't remember much, except I was creeped out by the dolls. Yeah, no, we said, the ventriloquist dolls can be creepy.
He also grew up with just loads of porcelain dolls in his room as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
Apparently. Melanie St. George wrote in and said, I enjoyed this movie. Those dummies scare the hell out of me. I feel like there's a theme here. The dummies.
Yeah, you and Mike, right? The dummies?
Obviously.
Murderers Row wrote and said, Juan's most underrated gem.
Wow.
I mean, to each their own. Everyone has their own opinion. I respect everyone's opinion around here. So then we had Come to Think of It wrote in and said, I remember finding it underwhelming at the time, but I must revisit.
Oh, wow. One mixed review so far. All right.
And then we had, friend of the podcast, Chris, write in from every horror movie on Netflix. Not only did he write in, he wrote in 3 times.
A lot of thoughts. He said, probably my favorite horror ending of all time. I saw this in theaters with the biggest crush I've ever had. Went hard then and goes hard now. I'm curious, Chris, are you talking about the ending or you? I think he was talking about himself.
The ending, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I also pulled up Chris's Letterboxd review just to out him here, and he says, this demands to be watched with a crowd, preferably on a date when you're a teenager in the year 2007. If you don't like this film, you don't like cinema. That's what he said.
We're calling you out, Chris.
That's hilarious.
That's wild.
That's why we love and respect him.
That's why I had to bump up my review slightly. I couldn't be out here saying I don't like cinema.
Yeah, well, obviously you're a man
Unlike
of the
these
cinema.
two.
Yeah, that's right. We're trash. Me and Mike are trash people.
We all know this. It's true.
But from there, let's go over. Of course, we have a horrific hotline from Nicholas. Let's see what he has to say.
Dead Silence. That is one of my teenage years horror movie next to The Uninvited and the American versions of The Ring and The Grudge. And as a teenager, I really loved the movie. It had everything like a 14-year-old me wanted to have. There's a bunch of jump scares, it's scary, there's a little bit of gore, and it has this super cool plot twist at the end, which turns out is not that great of a plot twist, to be honest.
Nicholas.
I watched the movie for the first time after 7 or 8 years at least. And I am a bit disappointed, mostly because I think I held it in a very high regard as a teenager. And it's a mediocre horror movie. It's good. Everything's there, but it's not much more than that, I think, except for this very cool soundtrack that really gave me chills. There are a few cool sequences, especially like in the motel, and there are a few good jump scares. But overall, I think it is missing something that James Wan later found when he did his first Insidious and the first 2 Conjuring movies. In terms of atmosphere, that is present in Dead Silence, but just not, how can I say, just not as refined, maybe, as it is in his later movies. So overall, and I hope I'm not bumping down another point in Colton's system, but I'm going to give it another weak yay.
Okay.
Partly for some atmospheric scenes and for my youth nostalgia, though I have to admit that there are definitely better movies by James Wan. And but it was still nice to kind of revisit this movie after all this time, so thank you for that.
Same page.
I like that that voicemail because it's basically like coming to terms with the fact that it's like, I used to really love this movie, and just the more and more he talked, he was like, well, I don't know if it really holds up in this aspect and that aspect. I think it's funny that at one point he called it a mediocre horror movie, but still gave it a yay. So, I mean, the nostalgia definitely bumps it up a little bit.
You got him scared now. He's scared
giving this a yay or even a slay isn't remotely as offensive as rating Malignant positively to me. So,
oh my God.
You can say this is your favorite movie of all time, and I'd be like, yeah, man, way better than Malignant. Doesn't matter.
You're so crusty.
So if you want to be like Nicholas and leave us a message on the horrific hotline, you can do so by sending us an email, itslayespodcast@gmail.com, or just leaving us a voice message on any of our social medias at itslayspodcast. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, Blue Sky. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to support the show, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Stephen, Joy, Carvey, Dan, Brian, and Trevor, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams hosted by Gill, and get episodes of this here main show 48 hours early, if Rowan remembers to do so. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, go ahead and plug the playlist.
If you want to get some spooky music, which I don't know if this is going to make it, because I think we already have the Saw theme song, so apparently it's basically just the same song.
Same thing.
You can go to Spotify, to the It Slays Podcast horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton mentioned earlier and go to the bio and the Linktree link and click on there. It'll take you directly to it. We upload scores or licensed music from iconic horror movies, just any horror movies we review or horror movies we love. So yeah, go get your spooky music on, because why the hell not? And lastly, so we're done WANUARY, and it's time to announce next month.
What a month it's been.
What a month. 2
nays and an okay. Yeah, baby, we're here.
So this one should be interesting. We got another themed month coming at you. And this one is fan favorite February, where we're totally giving, kind of totally giving the reins up to you. Essentially, we are. So our next film, I don't think I told anyone what I decided on it yet. No. So I went back, I looked at all the messages from when we first started our social media, did the counts of movies people requested we review over the years, and because we're terrible people, we ignored them. We just refused to do them. So we're going to do the most requested film we have ever gotten, that we haven't done yet, which is Sinister. Nice. We will be talking about Sinister. And so it was a close tie between that and House of Wax.
Thank you, Cecily.
Poor Cecily.
House of Wax needs to go back into the battle later on this month. So
that was essentially, we just decided on fan favorite February, just because we've been doing like the polls every year, right? So it's just kind of like one pick that month is going to be chosen by the fans. Whatever, we'll just do them both. So
that's right. So yeah, get your eyeballs on Sinister, and we will be back in 2 weeks. As always, thank you for all the support. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Mike.
I'm Colton.
And it's Jill.
Now, who's the dummy?